I need to, I prefer to put them in YouTube in order. So then for me to do that, I have to go back to our first one and upload them.
Yeah.
So I've been
feel you.
every time I think I'll sit down and do it, I kind of forget.
I feel you.
Okay, so looking at so one way to kind of look at this is that we see the score root IDs. There's one called score root. And so here's the item score root. Its ID. The IDs are duplicated within the object and in this list of items. So instead of an array, this is also an index, but it has the actual objects in it, while the other indexes just have IDs.
Right. Yeah.
But so this is the score root, and it has a source claim ID, which is the main thing. So there's one called main claim here. If we, let's get the quotes in there too, because I think I reused the word main claim. Okay, so here's the main claim. So the content is would fictional city benefit overall, but you notice the claim does in and of itself doesn't have a score or anything like that, and it doesn't even say whether it's pro or con, because it's not pro or con anything until it's associated to something, because it could be depending on what's associated to, it may support it or it may not. And the other stuff really is all that important for now, but you can see the type here is claim, and the other one had a type of a score as well. So if we wanted to find, well, we came from this score, just as luck would have it. And then we could look at its child IDs by score ID. You know, I might have some bad data in here because the score root may not actually be a traditional score. Hopefully, top score. So score roots are slightly different. I needed to store some other data. So the actual score is main claim score. So this is the actual main claim score. So this is the very top one of the score, and you can see its confidence is 0.3333, which matches, you know, it is about a third full. And it knows its source claim ID, its score root ID, and then it also has whether it's pro or not, because the score is the reified kind of this claim in context of this debate. This claim is a pro. Now, also, this word pro in this on a score is it pro? Hopefully I won't get this mixed up. See, now I can't remember. Is this pro its parent or is this pro main? I think it's pro its parent, which is unfortunate. I also need to know. So I designed this data structure before I realized, oh, most people, when they're looking at it, they don't care. No one wants to think about whether it's pro its parent or not. They will really want to know, is this supporting?
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
They want to know, is what side of the debate is this claim supporting?
What do you when you say is it pro its parent? What do you mean there?
Yeah, let me okay, so this claim is purple. It's pro for purple, right?
Okay.
But it's actually con to its parent.
I see. Yeah.
So in the old kind of reason score parlance, this pro then for that one would be false. Even though, but if it's pro main, it would be true. Because to the main claim, it supports the main claim, but it counters its parent.
And I have another question. What was the difference between the main claim and the root claim? I think, or root score. And
yeah, they're the same.
Okay.
Root's kind of an internal term. Main is what I think people will understand. So at some point we might go through and change this data structure to be more meaningful, put stuff like pro main on here. Like this should be pro main or pro parent. It shouldn't just be pro is ambiguous.
Yeah.
And then it also has a lot of data in here that's used in the mathematical calculations, and then I have a record of it in case I want to like either debug it or if I want to display some of the info about it, on how it relates to its siblings or stuff like that. So when you're displaying them, most of the time you're actually displaying the score. And I've also toyed with, does the score need to have a copy of the claim text in here? Because this is actually its claim up here. Right now, when I'm creating the UI, I look up the main claim to get the text. But we could, when we build the scores, copy the content into the score itself, and then we don't have to do that lookup. So I haven't quite figured out which way I actually want it to happen.
That makes sense.
So,
sorry, I'm also writing something else here. But keep going.
Yeah. So in general, these are all the main content of these are the scores, and then but the text comes from the claim.
Yeah, that helps a lot. That helps a lot.
So
the
when you add
a new score is kind of the whole node. That's a big one. That was a big one for me.
Yeah. And that's definitely kind of misleading. Oh, this is my old stuff, so it doesn't work.
It's Michael / if you want.
Well, I don't think I've deployed it.
Oh, right.
I'm not running it locally. Anyways, but when you drag, and what you'll need to do is you will add a new claim. You will add an edge to reason score. So it's separate from the nodes and edges that for the display. And then you would call calculate, so that it'll then generate the score. And we can see that in the page data. So I'm creating these actions. So you'll just need to do 2 of these. I created 2 nodes, so I had to create 4. So, and just so you know, these text are these 2. Right? So we could even put some content in there so you could see the wording change if we want to. But anyways,
there is text. It just doesn't. I was curious about that. Both have test as text, but didn't see any text. So
it's I think in the data it's actually content.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, in theory, if I do, I'd have to see, these objects do get kind of cluttered. So, although when you're doing this, in case it's not obvious, so the new data, the old data, you can usually just leave undefined or not even fill it out. And then the new data is a partial of a claim. So you don't have to like put everything. So, but we would put it in here. We would put content. Is content not showing up in the? I don't know why the autocomplete's not always working.
Yeah.
I think the AI stuff is sometimes getting in the way of TypeScript.
Yeah.
But if you did that and ran it, then it would show up as test.
Yeah.
I guess I could go ahead. Okay, anyways, so you create an array of messages or actions, it's using the message. I can't remember the word, but coding paradigm, right? So it's message passing. So you're creating an array of actions, and then you call calculate score actions. Now, this is where it gets a bit confusing. Where do RS repo, that's the actual like data store. Okay, so I'm creating the actions. And then, yeah, I'm calling calculate score actions, and I'm passing in the actions I made, and I'm passing in the repository that I want to apply those actions to. That way you can have multiple repositories if you want. And then it returns a list of actions that include, so it created this calculate score actions, also created some actions that are like, oh, add a score, and the score has these numbers. So those are messages as well. So you could store them somewhere and transmit them and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
But I think it also updates the repo, because I was looking at where I actually update the repo, but I think calculate score action uses these actions and updates the repo, which is not great. Not very clear software development, but some of this I wrote when I was first kind of learning. Yeah, it's old code.
Maybe that means it'll make sense to me because I'm yeah.
Well, no, I think it's just written kind of backwards. It's probably a little bit more confusing than it needs to be. Plus, several iterations on like what is pro, right?
Yeah.
So it took me a little while to figure out that stuff.
Well,
Anyway, so
maybe
yeah, that's
sorry,
how.
maybe while I'm going through it, I'll break down, hey, this is what this means, this is what this means, and it could be almost the start of some kind of documentation.
Yeah. The thing is, so now you've added, let's say you successfully created some actions, you added them and you created scores. Now at some point you need to get the scores back out and actually create a display node. Display node and display edges. Yeah, see, this is the part where it almost gets too complicated. So I have some programming in here that goes through all the edges and calculates how to display these lines, right? Well, actually these, I guess. Um, it calculates all this. And that's separate from the reason score calculation, because this is all display stuff that I just recently figured out. So that's not handled in the calculate score actions, because it's more like a display stuff. And we're going to get confused between the edges in reason score and the edges in React Flow. So this is creating a React Flow edge. So we might need to take this and make it its own function so that you can call it from outside of the page data script. But you might see if you can get it working even without that. Edges that push, process the relevance edges. So this is some more. So the relevance edges are the ones that come into the top. So they're these. And so these are the confidence edges, and the ones that come from the top are the relevance edges.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I have two different kind of math. So in this page, we're looping through the whole thing to calculate all that stuff. I probably should be commenting as I go. So yeah, so now I'm generating the display nodes. So this is, okay, so what you were trying to do there, this would be kind of what you need. So you generate the score. So you'd add in the claim, add in the edge, call the calculate, but then somehow you have to get the score out. So I guess what you would do is you would call the repo, which is the data store for that, and on there you would, where's the repo? Reason score repo. So probably get scores by source ID. So you would be passing in a claim, and then you call the calculate, it would generate a score. And then you'd ask the repo, hey repo, get me the scores for this source ID.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then the one you get back, that would be the one you did, and then you would create a display node out of that score using similar math. I mean, not math, but similar as you find down here in line 223. Now, another problem is, well, yeah, you would have to figure out you already know the X and Y, so you'd use your own code for that.
We should take a look at how I'm doing that, because I feel like it's not ideal, but that's another thing we can do. That's a whole other
yeah. Now, if you want to fake it out now, you could make a fake score and claim. I don't know. You could probably even just pass it empty objects. But it might not be bad to go ahead and try and add them to reason score and get it out and just log it, to console.log to see what's coming out.
Yeah. Now you've gone through this before, I'm sure, with me, but in terms of scoring, it's just calculated based on the children, right?
Yep.
So there's nothing that the user would say, this is 100 or this is a 1 or this is a whatever. It's just, it's all based on, okay.
Yeah, so there's no data entry right now in that area.
Right. So if I add something, it's going to update the repository, call the repository for the score with that function. Conceptually, it makes sense.
Yeah. I think you'll have to take a look and then come back to me with questions, unless you can think of any more right now. Because really what you need to do is figure out how to put this inside the thing that you were showing me a second ago.
Yeah. I think in one of my stoppers was just not understanding the terminology and making a mental model of what that means in regards to everything else. So then it was kind of a sticking point, but we've gone through most of that. So I think this will kind of unstick that. And you're right. Then what are the next sticking points that I should write down to ask? Makes sense. Because off the top of my head now, like nothing, but I'm sure that'll change immediately as I start trying to work on it. What is this cancel out stacked? Score numbers for number text. What is the, for a display node in display node data? In display node data under data, there's a cancel out stacked. So on your page, line 236. Yeah.
I don't remember. That's why it's stacked.
Does that have something to do with those bricks, I wonder? But
yeah. Oh, so yeah, I have a formula. Yeah, that calculates the cancel out. I don't know why sometimes it opens stuff up.
I have that same question.
Yeah, that's some calculations that I'm doing to figure out how to shape those boxes, and I've completely forgotten all that. So I did start kind of breaking it out into functions. So I'm not even sure I remember what they do.
Now, another project that I saw using React Flow was using this use store, and they stored all of their functions there. But then there was also in React Flow documents something about, I don't remember. Does use store mean anything to you in this sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I am actually using it. So all sources, why did I call that sources? Yeah, so all sources is it's only used within the sources. Oh, the sources are all the kind of the children.
All the children edges coming in.
Yeah, all the children edges coming in. So that's one place that I'm using use store. But I thought I would be using it other places, but it looks like that's the only place I'm using it. What am I using in the data store in the actual page itself? I guess I'm storing all the data inside React Flow, I think. Page.tsx. So I'm using set nodes and set edges. So React Flow is managing the state. So I did need a little bit of state inside the display, but outside of that, instead of using that, I'm using React Flow as the state management. That makes sense.
I'd have to do a bit more research. I think generally understand, but in practice, I haven't done that before. So But I think I generally understand.
Yeah. So normally within React is like a use state or a use.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So but React Flow has its own built-in state, and behind the scenes they probably use one of those.
Right. That makes sense.
So somewhere, yeah, when you after you create your nodes, you're already doing that today. You're using set nodes somewhere.
Yep.
And that's
Yep.
what's updating the screen. Yep. Okay, well I'm a little tired today, so that's probably
okay.
as good as I can go. But that'll get you moving some, and then you'll just have to slack me when you get stuck.
It absolutely will. I had three or just one other question about the other tasks, like the more librarian related tasks, I guess, or the graph related tasks. And just was double checking if any of those needed to change, or if this takes priority over that, or if they're all just kind of on the table to go ahead and do. And they were, I can share my screen if you want to give you a bit more context. And that. And these were the five we talked about just last that kind of were sitting there left. It was see if Feldman referencing something that in keto lowers residence time. What conclusions in that specific type study, what methods did they use to come to those conclusions in terms of metabolic syndrome versus cardiac metabolism?
Yeah.
This new study you sent in Slack, go ahead, go through that. I can read it. I haven't yet. I just kind of marked it down.
Yeah.
And going through the mortality charts to see if any of them would be good to use as graphics. And trying to, this one's a bit larger. This one's right there at the bottom. Trying to decipher what's meant from going from small and dense to large over time, over study, like by study, by date, by term. See if that has changed.
Yeah.
So
okay, so you can also try and do some of that.
Well, that's my question. Should I focus on the dev or do any of these? Is there any priority specifically?
What I would suggest to do is start with the dev work, and then when you get stuck at some point, which will happen, you'll message me, and then you'll have nothing more to do on it. And then kind of toggle back to the stuff. Kind of what I think that'd probably be a good way to do it.
That sounds great. Love it.
Yeah, because I can't even really start the video until, well, I guess theoretically I could script it out right now without those drag and drops working, because I can just write a script that says, where I click a button and it adds new nodes. No, because I have that all tangled up in the page data. So it would probably be good for you to break it apart. And then later on we'll need to build in a video scripting thing, so we can just click buttons and it'll put them on there.
Yeah.
Okay,
perfect. That definitely works for me to continue working on this stuff. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for working on it.
Anytime.
All right.
See ya. Yeah, talk to you later.